People wear socks. Vampires have to pretend they're people. It's a Masquerade violation to not wear socks.
So we knew that first-person melee combat would be a big part of our game, which is not something that many people have gotten right.
To illustrate this point, we're going to turn to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And because we work daily with our Scandinavian friends from Paradox, we're going to look to Thor as an example. Specifically, Thor's battle on the Rainbow Bridge in Thor Ragnarok.
Thor dropped in from the sky, landed on a flat bridge in the middle of the ocean, and proceeded to kill everyone around him with lightning bolt after lightning bolt. That battle was impactful, but also not very challenging for Thor.
And so that's basically where we were in 2018. Combat was pretty impactful, it was enjoyable, but it was also easy.
Essentially what we had was something that was easy to learn and easy to master.
Which is maybe how it should be if you're a god. Combat is so easy that there's no incentive to engage in variety, tactics, strategy.
So where do we go from here?
Well, we start simple. We layer on challenge with damage balance and later move into enemies, abilities, and behaviors. Then we bring it all together in encounter design. Each new layer of challenge makes your game harder to master.
And therefore, at the same time, making it harder to learn. Hard to learn and hard to master is not the target. It is on the surface less enjoyable than the easy and accessible combat we had to start.
Challenge adds depth and variety, which supports tactics, strategy, and ultimately the RPG progression that we need in Bloodlines 2. The trick, though, is to not stop there, but to go back and layer in the ease of combat from step one.
With the goal being, in the end, of being easy to learn and hard to master.
I feel like every single RPG talks about player choice or reactivity and like millions of outcomes, though. What does reactivity mean in terms of Bloodlines?
For us, reactivity means that actions you take in the world, like violence, dialogue skills, choices, or transactions, lead to different outcomes within the quest. This could result in two different people having a different experience based on how they played the quest and even how they interacted with an NPC.
We designed so it feels like you've impacted every NPC's opinion of you. This ranges from the flavor of replies you get to major consequences to the story.
The protagonist role is a bit different in Bloodlines than it is in most games. For example, in Mass Effect, you're the captain of a famous ship. In The Witcher, you have an entire castle. In Bloodlines, you have a one-bedroom apartment, and technically it's not even yours. Pulp is a big inspiration for how we write Bloodlines. Pulp detectives are flawed characters that move between different worlds. The upper class, the underworld, the justice system.
They're resilient, they're lucky, they tend to have quite a lot of agency, and they also sometimes make up their own moral code.
There's no chosen one aspect. There's nothing special about you. The world exists with or without you. You're merely a pawn in a bigger, older game.
One of the most distinctive elements of Bloodlines, and an element we knew early on we wanted to retain from the original, was the first-person dialogue camera. We want the player to have the sense that they are having a face-to-face conversation with a real person, and we want the player to feel like their dialogue choices matter and affect not only the story, but have an impact on the person you're talking to. This is Chip. He's a fellow kindred who was embraced during the height of Seattle's grunge era. And right now, Chip is playing what we call the neutral disposition. It's the baseline emotional state and is shared to some degree by every character within the game. Using this as our foundation, we layer on more extreme emotions for characters as needed, for examples when they get angry, or when they're scared, or even flirtatious. We also use Mocap for the foundation of almost all of our animations in Bloodlines 2. We've actually gone and built a fully fledged Mocap studio on site at Hardsuit Labs to capture all our Mocap, which has really helped to increase the production capacity of the team since we started the project, and also helping to boost the quality that we're capable of as well.
Welcome to Late Night on Main Street, where we're going to illuminate what it takes to make a hub level and why we chose the hub and spoke system and why it's correct for this game.
Spokes are a linear experience. The nice thing about spokes is that they keep the narrative sequential and focused. Spokes are a great place to tell stories. Hubs, on the other hand, are kind of chunks of the world. They're these controlled ecosystems that we generate. Hubs are really great to explore and to experiment. A major reason that we're using hubs is because we're a legacy of Bloodlines 1. Bloodlines 1 used a hub and spoke system. Quirky, identifiable city neighborhoods really make great hubs. Santa Monica, Hollywood, Chinatown, and downtown. And Seattle, interestingly, has a lot of the sort of similar, unique neighborhood structure, where we have neighborhoods that have their own identities and are kind of iconic relative to the rest of the city of Seattle, so we drew that parallel right there. And then the second really main reason is because hubs can be crafted in a way that is difficult in an open world. An open world is an open format, but it's a larger space. With a hub, it's a more controlled space. And because narrative is important to us in our game, we chose that tighter space so that we could deliver a more controlled experience.
We knew that as a narrative RPG, we would be working up until the last minute, polishing the emotions that we want to convey in our face-to-face interactions. And we knew that the style of vampire combat that we were targeting would take time to balance between the progression and the immediate satisfaction. And we also knew that bringing Seattle to life as a character in the game would take polish and iteration.
And from experience, things were feeling a bit tight. We crunched for months to get Bloodlines 1 into the state you saw it at, and we still weren't able to hit the quality bar we were shooting for. It ended up burning out the majority of the team. We definitely don't want to repeat the mistakes of Bloodlines 1, trying to get Bloodlines 2 out the door.
But so that's where we were. We definitely didn't want to release a half-baked game, not here, not ever. And we didn't want to send anybody on a death march trying to get there either. So Andy, what did we do?
Well, it started back in April as we brought on additional people that allowed us to change the way we were doing things. The expanded team has given us the bandwidth to face these challenges.
So most of you already know that Bloodlines 2 will not, as we originally intended, arrive in early 2020, but later next year.
The truth is that we also made a promise to ourselves, and ultimately to you, about what Bloodlines 2 is and will be. And frankly, that promise is more important than Q1 2020.
We're looking forward to showing you all the polish this extra time earns us. For the next few months, we're going to focus on making the Bloodlines 2 experience that much better. And here for your enjoyment, which you may freeze frame after this goes on YouTube, is a list of questions Kara Ellison has asked me about vampires while working on this project. Enjoy.